Thank you, Vasanthi. Never felt so special. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Today, Myntra is, as you know, one of our leading e-commerce companies that deal exclusively in fashion and lifestyle products. Very interesting to have a conversation with Lakshmi backstage, which I'll continue here. There are a number of questions that I asked him. Even if I can ask a fraction of those on your behalf here, I'll be very happy. We call him Ellen in short. Ellen has a wealth of experience in e-commerce, particularly as it applies to the new technology and upcoming technologies in the areas of research and customer experience in Myntra. So today, shopping is not a linear experience anymore. There's so much technology can offer to the shopping experience in terms of context, in terms of addition to personalization, in terms of emotional connect with the customers, and so much more, particularly in a business like Myntra. Now, it is very tempting to apply all of these technologies across the board and go on technology overdrive in any business. But today we are going to look at how Myntra has applied technology, specifically AI-driven technologies in the interest of context-driven customer experiences, particularly helping customers shop the way they want, the time they want to shop, and how they want to shop. So that's predominantly the domain in the conversation today. So to start with, can you take us through some of the AI-driven initiatives in enhancing customer experience at Myntra?
Sure. So thanks, Raghavan, and it's my pleasure to be here amongst all of you. So from an AI experiences perspective, I think the way we are thinking about it increasingly is that one, as we are putting down experiences, I think AI is a means to an end. So it's not so much about, say, a specific class of experiences, just as AI experiences, because you need to make sure you're solving the right problem. So you need to make sure that you're starting from the experience and then using AI as a supercharging effect that can actually help you get there what would have earlier not been possible. In that context, if I was to look at it, some of the key principles that we are trying to use is that we want it to be as personalized and say near real time as possible. I think that is super important because from a general user behavior, if you were to look at it, while e-commerce and commerce might be a different space, increasingly users, how digital they are, the experiences that they're seeking are going to be fairly similar to how they, say, interact on social media or some of the content platforms. So it needs to be closer to that. So with that in mind, how near real time can you be? And that, let me just give you an example. For instance, what I mean by that is traditionally a lot of, say, understanding that you would have might be a lot more heuristic. It might be across different sessions. You might take, say, time-based sort of models in order to define that so-and-so has bought XYZ and then trying to translate into experiences. But now what people are wanting and what people respond to when we look at it within our own data is, I came in a session, I'm searching for dresses, and then the platform has thrown a various bunch of things to me. As I go further in my entire journey, how do you start understanding that this is what I'm looking for right now? Start doubling down a lot more on that as I come back, even back to the homepage. How does that translate a lot more? That's important. The other thing is, if I was to look at certain types of dresses with, say, certain attributes, how do I start looking at the fact that these are the kind of things that the user is actually liking? A traditional mindset would have been a lot more that you wait for the user to apply filters, you do various search queries, but increasingly it's a lot more visual. The platform is expected to understand what the user is actually looking for, and with that in mind, they are actually thinking that what you need to do is, I have given you enough signals on what I'm looking at. If you can actually intuitively understand all of those and bring it to bear, nothing better than that, because then you're reducing the effort that the customer actually needs to put into the entire shopping journey.
Ellen, let's double click on that with one specific example. We played around with the Myntra app in the back room quite a bit before coming here, trying to understand some of these experiences as it applies on the business. So you spoke about context-driven searches that are very relevant, that demonstrates that you know who the shopper is.
Yeah.
So can you tell me with an example how it applies to a customer?
Yeah, so let me maybe give two examples. And this also comes to intuitiveness, because what we are also trying to do is that, again, one learning that we've had as we try to create new experiences, the use of technology to make it improve whatever is the core standard experience, the better it is. The more you try to completely shift the journey in a big way, you should of course try and you should explore all of those, but you'll need to be a lot more patient to give it that adoption cycle because it's not going to instantly change. So for instance, we would be fooling ourselves if we were to think that just on Myntra, the experience is going to be so much different than what users are doing everywhere else. So you do need to follow what the user behavior in general is panning out to
And
be.
even within Myntra, there's going to be different demography that applies.
Absolutely. So for instance, someone searching or say someone coming onto the platform from Lucknow versus say Bangalore, someone who's a lot more affluent user versus maybe not so affluent user basis purchases and signals that we've got, someone who's a new user versus very entrenched user, Gen Z versus non-Gen Z, all of these in terms of experiences are very, very different that we try to create. And these are all algorithmic. So that's something that you need to understand. The other thing specifically to your question on AI, what we are at least trying to do is on, say, something like a search experience. What we try to do is a bulk of the queries, and as product manager or say technologist, when we look at it, we will look at metrics and we'll always see the top queries, whether they're performing very, very well. Most of the time, those are taken care of. But the real problem ends up being that your long tail queries, which are the ones that really matter because they are shaping perception of whether the user is believing that Myntra is the place where they come and search for something that they want, or do they search outside and then come and translate the sharpened intent already onto the platform. You want the starting point to be Myntra. If that happens to be the case, for some of those, what we are starting to do is we are creating a post-facto agentic query understanding so that we can analyze, then we can enrich the catalog attributes from the backend so that the following queries that come through are much richer. The other thing that we are trying to do is also move from just plain lexical search, which is, say, again, anchored very heavily on catalog attributes, to go into multi-modal embeddings, so that then you are able to be completely in line with whatever is the right articulation of a trend from general parlance that is happening outside.
And these are in-session experiences.
From a search perspective, it might be broader. Personalization part of it will be in session. So that's where it will come through. So, yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant. Sometimes the amount of information that these businesses know about us, it's actually spooky, right? And in the world of agentic AI, where you have shopping agents shopping on your behalf, where you're trying to drive a lot of personalization, trust and transparency are key currencies. So how does Myntra handle the concerns around trust and transparency? How do you really enable customers to shop with you with confidence and also give them the experiences that are tailored to them without spooking them?
So I think this is a great question. I think this is a fine line, right? So what, at least our view on this is data, privacy, hygiene, and then making sure that it's all handled responsible. Some of the things that were discussed in the earlier session, I think that is table stakes. I don't think that there is any compromise. So just to come back to where you were saying spooky or otherwise, I think those are table stakes. But what, at least with more, say, Gen Z users, as we are seeing a lot more, who are digitally native, they've grown up with tech, so their expectation of what a platform, when they come on the app, should be is very, very different than, say, what might be from, say, people who were born in the 80s or 90s and then coming through in whatever form, because then you're used to giving certain information and then getting the answer. It's still a bit of a question-answer mode. Whereas here, I think the way that users, from whatever user research we also do, that is coming together is, use the data that is necessary, use it responsibly, but at the same time, use it meaningfully to make sure that the experience for me is a lot more curated and tailored. If you can make that happen, there is a lot of reward from that. But if you're using data and you're just going to throw it around without actually doing much, the experience just seems very clunky, then there is not much benefit that is going to come together. So I think two parts. One is just from basics of handling the data and making sure that it's all handled responsibly. I think we use whatever at the Walmart, say, guidelines in terms of making sure those are all in place so that there is no compromise. But at the same time, using the data to make sure that you're personalizing the experience in a meaningful manner for the user. For instance, just as an example, we are one of the platforms where you will get very good size and fit recommendations. Now, that is, of course, personalized, but at the same time, that is going to add value to the user. When someone comes on board, they don't know for this particular brand, should I buy S, M, or L? Where you're recommending, that is, of course, personalized. That is using data of past purchases or whatever other users like you might have purchased. But that makes a ton of sense. It improves the journey for the user. Those are things that are very heavily rewarded. But if you're doing things that are where it goes into the realm of spooky, where there is no value add, but you still seem to be using data and you're telling me that you're using all this kind of data, that's where it becomes.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. In fact, if the business is able to explain to you why they are showing you what they are showing you, That demonstrates trust and transparency and also proper application of what they've learned from your shopping experience. So that's brilliant. Equally, there are a lot of things that we can do with technology today. At the same time, all our consumers are in different places, moving at different speeds. So how fast is too fast when it comes to introducing new tech in our customer experiences, and how much is too much?
So I think this might be slightly nuanced, but the fact that I think what we could do with technology earlier, we would have been probably blocked on the fact that does it seem doable? Increasingly, I think the capabilities and what we can actually do, that is no longer the bottleneck. Obviously, there is a time aspect. Different organizations will have their own agility and how fast they can do it or not. But I think the bottleneck is shifting a lot more to just judgment of what is the user actually wanting. We can do 100 different things. Does it mean that we will actually do all of those 100 things and then overload the user? That will make no sense, because if you are going to create all solutions and then it's almost like when you come in over here, there are 100 doors and then you're asking the user to choose which one to go into and with elaborate descriptions, it's not going to make any sense. You need to make the choice for the user. So the real deal is, how do you make sure that whatever you're creating, you want to make sure that the fast part of it needs to come together. For instance, when we launched Maya, which is our conversational shopping experience, we wanted to launch it in a way that it is controlled and we are getting the right unit experience going, right? So that you're able to test it out and then get it through. But at the same time, you want to make sure that you're not overloading the user. So now the question for us is going to be, how do we integrate it into the regular search journey to make sure that it is adding value? Because for a user, as simplified the journey as possible, as less friction and as less cognitive load, the better it will be. Any platform that is going to add decision fatigue to the users a lot more, eventually is going to be a loser, because people are not wanting to put in so much effort. Ultimately, think of when they're buying fashion. It is supposed to be a lot more joyful, simple experience. If you're going to make it stressful, you've already lost the battle. So you want to constantly innovate to make sure that judgment is applied on how much is too much for the user. I think many a times what we make a mistake as technologists is, we think of it only from a shipping lens on how much can we actually do, how much can be absorbed in the roadmap. I think the bottleneck is shifting into more judgment that how much should actually be done so that it really adds value to the users, rather than trying to get solutions that are looking for problems. I don't think that will make a lot of sense.
Oh, that's a very, very important point to note, because with technology today, can you do things? Yes, you can. Should you do is the question. And that's where judgment becomes very important, and the accountability shifts to us as engineers who develop these experiences. Also question why we are doing what we are asked to do, and apply logic from a consumer standpoint to actually implement these experiences.
Yeah.
So,
the only other thing that I might also add is that in many cases, and we've also been guilty, I've also been guilty in doing some of those, a lot of the features that we build, they might be very cool, they will give initial burst of results, but that is because you're getting that to be a very power user-centric sort of feature that you're actually building, which might be used heavily by, say, a 2-3% user base, which is very loyal to you. But the bulk of the users, they might not even be able to make sense of it. So you, again, need to be very sharp in understanding who is the user that you're building for, and accordingly tailor it. If you're trying to do something that is going to get 60-70% user adoption, then have that mindset in play, rather than building something that is going to be, say, a 2-3% use case will be loved by those people, but it's never going to be mass scale. So I think some of these judgments are very important as we build.
Very important. Now, if you're like me, you are a very impatient shopper who gives up very easily on any website if it doesn't cater to your needs very immediately. So you probably build for people that are looking for relevant results right up, also equally catering to some of the power users who've got the ability to go deeper and get exactly what they want. So both are important.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. No, thank you. Thank you very much, Ellen. I think that's all we have time for today. Excellent having you on stage today. I know we covered quite a bit in 15 minutes, but there is a lot more that we covered backstage. I wish we are able to answer more questions, but we are at time now. Thank you.
Thanks, Raghavan.